Assalamualaikum and a very good morning to our dearest lecturer and fellow classmates. We are from Tutorial 3, Group 5, will be presenting our chapter discussion from Chapter 14 about controlling work and organizational process.
In management, control is more than just a final step in a process. It is a continuous guidance that ensures the organization remains viable and competitive. It's like a process that links other functions like planning, organizing, and leading together. While planning sets the goal and destination, control is the guidance that alerts you when you've taken the wrong steps and helps you recalculate. Number 1, ensuring goal achievement. Control acts as a bridge between planning and results. Without a control system, a plan is merely a plan. Control ensures that all of the activities are aligned with the organization's objectives by detecting deviations and initiating corrective action before they find out that it is too late. Second, resource optimization and efficiency. One of the most vital roles of control is the prevention of waste. By setting standards for things like labor hours, material usage, and financial budgets, managers can identify exactly where the resources are being underutilized or misused. For example, a quality control system reduces the cost of rework by catching defects early, ensuring that materials and time are not wasted on unsellable products.
Thirdly, risk mitigation and crisis prevention. Control systems act as an early warning system. It allows managers to identify potential threats such as dip in employee morale, a drop in product quality, or a shift in market trends before they escalate into a full-blown crisis. Fourth, enhancing employee motivation. Contrary to the idea that control is policy, a fair control system actually boosts morale. When employees have clear, measurable standards, they know exactly what's expected of them and how they will be appraised. This transparency reduces uncertainty and allows for objective reward, such as bonuses or promotion, based on proven data rather than favoritism. Lastly, facilitating coordination and discipline. In large organizations, different departments like sales, HR, and production, they can easily lose sight of each other's need. Control provides a unity of direction. It ensures that everyone is following the same direction and that one department's delay don't derail the entire company timeline.
My name is Shihani Safia, metric number 240000730, and I will be explaining the answer for question number 2, which is describe the 4 methods manager can use to acquire information about actual work performance. So I'll start with the first 2, which are personal observation and statistical reports. First, personal observations. This refers to managers being physically present at the workplace and observing employees directly. A common example is management by walking around, or MBWA, where managers walk around, interact with employees, and see how work is actually being done. For example, Toyota uses what is known as a Gemba walk, where managers go to the actual place where work happens to observe processes, understand work performance, and identify problems firsthand. The main advantage of personal observation is that the information is firsthand and unfiltered. Managers can also capture things that are not written in reports, such as body language, facial expressions, or tone of voice. However, this method has limitations because it can be time-consuming and is subject to perceptual bias. Next is statistical reports. These are data-driven reports that include bar charts, graphs, and numerical displays. They are easy to visualize and very effective for showing trends and relationships in performance. However, statistical reports usually focus on only a few key areas and may ignore subjective factors such as employee attitudes or motivation. Moving on to the next 2 methods, which are oral reports and written reports. Oral reports involves sharing information through meetings, one-on-one discussions, conference, or phone calls. This method is especially useful in employee-oriented organizations where the employees work closely together. Oral reports allow fast information flow and immediate two-way feedback. Managers can also understand the speaker's tone of voice and emotions. However, the information may be filtered and it can be difficult to document for future reference. Lastly, written reports. These are formal documents that provide a higher level of detail and permanence compared to oral reports. Written reports are more comprehensive and easier to catalog and refer to later. However, they are generally slower and more rigid due to their formal nature. In conclusion, each method has its own strengths and weaknesses, and managers usually use a combination of all four to effectively monitor work performance. Now, I will pass to the next presenter.
Hello everyone, my name is Nur Amni Farzana binti Jamaluddin, matrix number 24000523, and today I will be presenting question 14.3. The question is, planning and controlling are the opposite sides of the same coin. Do you think this statement is true at all levels of organizational hierarchy? Why or why not? So, in this slide, I will explain why planning and controlling are described as two sides of the same coin. First, planning is the process of setting goals and deciding the best action to achieve them. It is a forward-looking because managers think about the future and what they want the organization to achieve. Next, controlling is the process of monitoring performance, comparing the actual result with the planned goals, and taking corrective action if there are differences. It is a backward looking because managers will look at the past result to see whether the goals have been achieved. However, how planning and controlling are linked? Well, planning sets the standards or targets, so without a plan, controlling would have no direction. At the same time, controlling will provide feedback on the performance, which will help managers to improve better plans. Because of this connection, planning and controlling will form a continuous cycle. Planning will guide the actions, controlling will check the results, and the feedback will be used to create a better plan. Well, this creates a never-ending loop of improvement. That is why planning and controlling are considered two sides of the same coin. Now, let's move on to the next presenter.
In my view, the statement that planning and controlling are two sides of the same coin is true at all levels of the organizational hierarchy. This is because planning and controlling are closely linked. Without planning, managers would have no clear benchmark to measure performance. At the same time, without controlling, managers would not know whether their plans are effective or need improvement. At the top level, managers focus more on strategic planning, such as setting long-term goals, while controlling is done through overall performance indicators like profit or market share. At the middle level, managers balance both functions by planning departmental activities and controlling results through budget and KPI. At the lower level, planning is more short-term and operational, and controlling involves daily supervision and immediate corrective action. In conclusion, planning and controlling are essential at all levels of the organization.
Hello there, my name is Faris and I will be discussing question 4. Feed-forward control is a preventative managerial control that takes place before an activity begins. Its main purpose is to identify and eliminate potential problems at the input stage so that errors and failures do not occur during or after operations. Basically saying it anticipates problems. Implementation example from the control is supplier selection and qualification, where approving suppliers are based on strict quality and safety standards before purchasing. Its key features are it is the most desirable type of control in management. And from a risk management perspective, for example, food safety, it represents a high severity, moderate probability risk. This is necessary to take actions because preventing failures is far more effective and less costly than correcting them. Next would be the concurrent control. It monitors activities while they are happening, so managers can detect and correct problems immediately. In practice, this means supervising operations, using sensors or dashboards, and applying checks during process, so problems are fixed before they become big failures. Its key features are that in the best known form of concurrent control is direct supervision. For example, the MBWA, or called management by walking around, is a phrase when manager is out in the work area interacting with employees. Next is from a risk management perspective. Concurrent controls are ideal for moderate to high probability risk where quick detections limit impact. Concurrent controls reduce the window of exposure and lower expected loss by containing problems immediately.
Last but not least, feedback control. Feedback control takes place after an activity is completed. It focuses on evaluating results by comparing actual performance with standards and using the information to improve future performance. Okay, for example, by reviewing monthly sales reports to assess whether targets were met and deciding corrective actions for the next period. In summary, we'll look at the difference between these three controls. First, feed-forward control happens before an activity starts to prevent problems in advance. Secondly, the concurrent control happens during the activity to correct problems immediately. And the last one, which is the feedback control, well, it happens after the activity to evaluate results and improve future performance. I think that's all from us. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nurhidayah binti Masri. My matrix number is 25073420. I will now answer the fifth question, which is feedback control is after the fact. Illustrate why its use may be perceived as a disadvantage for any organization. One of the major disadvantages is timing. Problems are often identified only after they have already affected the organization. At that point, it is no longer possible to correct the current outcome. Instead, the organization must deal with the consequences such as additional costs or customer complaints. For example, in a manufacturing company, quality inspections are usually carried out after production. If defects are found during final inspection, the company may need to rework or discard the products. This increases the operational costs, delays delivery, and may even lead to customer dissatisfaction if faulty products reach the market. In addition, relying heavily on feedback control can encourage a reactive management style, where managers respond to problems rather than preventing them. This is especially risky in competitive and fast-moving industries. In conclusion, although feedback control plays an important role in evaluating performance and supporting continuous improvement, it should not be used alone. Organizations are more effective when feedback control is supported by preventive control methods that address problems before they occur.
My name is Shihani Safia, metric number 240000730, and today I'll be sharing the 10-point case summary of Case Application 1, Healthy Fast Food Case Study regarding Chipotle on the topic of control process social responsibility. To start with, Chipotle entered the market with a unique promise called Food with Integrity, focusing on fresh, non-GMO, organic, and locally sourced ingredients. This mission worked well initially, but as the chain grew to over 2,200 locations, maintaining those high safety standards on such a massive scale becoming an incredibly complex challenge. In 2015, that complexity reached a breaking point. The company faced a series of major food contamination outbreaks, including E. coli, norovirus, and salmonella, which spread across 11 different states. This wasn't just a corporate issue, it was a public health crisis, with more than 500 customers becoming ill after eating at various Chipotle locations. The fallout was immediate and severe. Sales dropped by 30%, stock value declines, and the company faced numerous lawsuits from those who were affected. Now let's look at why this happened and how management took control to fix it. Unlike its competitors who used centralized sources, Chipotle's model relied on hundreds of local vendors and in-store preparations. While this supported their fresh mission, it made quality control much more difficult to manage. To fix this, Chipotle implemented aggressive new controls, such as including new testing for meat contamination and completely revised food handling procedures. They also began to mirror their competitors by shifting some preparation to centralized kitchens and reducing their number of outside vendors to simplify the supply chain. In a very public move to regain control, the company closed all of its stores for an entire afternoon to provide consistent mandatory training for every employee on these new safety standards. Ultimately, the crisis led to a change at the top. Founder and CEO Steve Ells step away, and under new management, the company has begun a slow but steady turnaround, with sales finally beginning to
Hi, my
improve.
name is Auni Huzaifa binti Ahmad Rizwan, metric number 25006338. Okay, so I will be explained for question 1 in case study 1 about why it was important for Chipotle to revise its food handling and food supply standard. After facing several food contamination outbreaks, Chipotle realized that its existing controls were no longer effective as the company expanded. Firstly, the most important reason Chipotle need to revise its standard is to protect customer health and food safety. In 2015, Chipotle experienced several food contamination outbreaks, including E. coli, norovirus, and salmonella. This incident caused more than 500 customers across different states to fall sick. This clearly shows that the company's existing food handling procedures were not strong enough, especially as the business expanded rapidly. By revising its food handling and supply standard, Chipotle aimed to reduce the risk of foodborne illness, prevent future outbreaks, and ensure that customer safety becomes the top priority in all its operations. Next, they also need to strengthen control over supply chain. Unlike many traditional fast food companies that rely on centralized sourcing, although this supplied freshness, it also made the supply chain highly complex and difficult to manage. As a result, ensuring consistent food safety practice across all outlets became a major challenge. By updating its food handling and supply standard, Chipotle simplified its operation. The company reduced the number of suppliers and shifted part of its food preparation to centralized. Moving on to the next point, rebuild customer trust and protect the company reputation. The outbreak had a serious impact on how customers view the brand. Sales dropped significantly, several stores were forced to close temporarily, and the company faced legal action. More importantly, customers began to lose confidence in Chipotle's promise of providing safe and high-quality food. Once customer trust is damaged, it becomes very difficult for a food company to retain loyal customers. So, by revising its standard, Chipotle showed that it was taking responsibility for the situation and making meaningful improvement. The introduction of stricter safety control helped reassure customers that food safety was now a top priority. Over time, these changes were crucial in restoring public confidence, strengthening the company's reputation, and supporting long-term business recovery. Lastly, Chipotle needs to revise its standard in order to fulfill ethical and social responsibility. As a food service company, Chipotle has a moral and social duty to protect public health. Serving unsafe food can cause serious harm to customers and negatively affect society. Food safety is not only a business issue but also an ethical obligation. By strengthening its food handling and supply standard, Chipotle demonstrates responsible and ethical behavior. This action also helped the company comply with food safety regulation, reduce legal risk, and show commitment to long-term sustainability and social responsibility. In conclusion, Chipotle needs to revise its standard to address serious weaknesses that emerged as the company expanded. The food contamination outbreak highlight the importance of protecting customer health and ensuring food safety as the top priority. In addition, improving control over a complex supply chain was necessary to maintain consistent standards across all locations. Revising this standard also played a key role in rebuilding customer trust and protecting the company reputation after the crisis. Most importantly, this action reflects Chipotle's ethical and social responsibility to provide safe food to the public.
Hello there, my name is Faris and I will be discussing question 2. Which controls would be more important to Chipotle and why is this level of managerial controls necessary? Feed-forward control is the most important one for Chipotle. This type of control is a preventative that acts before food reaches the store to stop problems rather than detecting them or fixing them later. For Chipotle, the core problem in the case was contamination. introduced somewhere from upstream from suppliers or prep that only showed up later as illness reports and reputation damage. Because the cost of failure, like sick customers, store closures, lawsuits, and sales, is extremely high, preventing contamination upstream is far more effective than only reacting later. Examples of feed-forward controls that Chipotle should implement are supplier qualifications and audits like strict criteria, on-site audits, and ongoing performance metrics for farms, or make fewer, larger, vetted suppliers or centralized kitchens to reduce vendor complexity and prepare high-risk items in controlled central facilities. Why is it necessary for Chipotle? Well, it's because the case shows contamination came from complex local supplier networks and in-store prep. Feed-forward controls directly reduce the probability that contaminated ingredients enter stores. And from a risk management perspective, food safety is a high severity, moderate probability risk. Risk management theory emphasizes prevention for high impact risk. Since food contamination can cause serious harm and reputational damage, Chipotle must focus on feed-forward controls that prevent unsafe ingredients from entering the supply chain rather than relying on corrective actions after the damage has occurred. Preventing problems is cheaper than repairing reputational and legal damage. So, managerial attention should prioritize upstream preventive systems. And lastly, it is the most desirable type of control in the food industry. Other examples that use feed-forward control is KFC that applies through HACCP-based systems, which are a preventative food safety management system that restricts supplier approval and audits to prevent food contamination before ingredients reach its restaurants. This preventative approach helps ensure food safety across its outlets
Hi,
in
my name
Malaysia.
is Nur Ayuni. Matrix number is 25006548. I will answer question 3. How can Chipotle make sure that employees are following the new food handling standards? My first point is feedforward controls, training and standard. Companies should do mandatory training. All employees must undergo intensive retraining on the new food safety protocols and focusing on high-risk items such as fresh produce, chicken marination, and cutting board. Next, employees should undergo visual hands-on learning. Use highly visual training material, role-playing and hands-on practice drills. They not just writing manual, they ensure retention, especially given high staff turnover. For a second point is concurrent controls, monitoring and technology. Active managerial supervision. Manager must be physically present on the line, actively observing and correcting employees' behavior in real time. Studies show that employee adherence to standards significantly increase when they are actively monitored by management. Also, they can use automate and digital monitoring. For example, temperature logging. Use digital thermometer and automate system to log food temperature such as cooking, holding and cooling in real time. Also, they can sending instant alert to manager if a temperature falls outside the safe critical limit. For the third point is feedback controls, accountability and culture. First, performance feedback and discipline. Performance review can provide employees with regular and specific food safety. For discipline action, process for non-compliance with the new safety standard. Furthermore, cultivate a food safety culture. Leadership commitment, management must demonstrate their food safety is the top priority even over speed or labor costs.
Now, we often think of complex as better or more sophisticated, but in food logistics, complexity is a risk. Now, we're going to discuss the statement the more basic the food chain, the easier it is to control. For our first point of control is reduce points of failure. Most national chain uses a central source for ingredients because it limits exposure to outside elements. When Chipotle managed hundreds of local vendors, they created a complex and risky environment. It is nearly impossible to monitor the safety standards of hundreds of independent providers simultaneously. A basic chain simplifies this by reducing the number of vendors involved, so it is easier to audit and control. Second, we look at ease of traceability. When an outbreak occurs, a basic chain allows for rapid track and trace. If all beef comes from one central processor, the company can identify the contaminated batch within hours. When ingredients are sourced locally across 2,200 stores, identifying the specific source of a tomato or onion becomes a tedious problem. Finally, consistency of process. In a basic chain, food is handled in a centralized kitchen. In Chipotle's original model, food was prepared in store across 2,200 locations. This makes quality control difficult because it introduces thousands of opportunity for human error. By shifting to centralized kitchen, a company can apply strict new controls and tests for contamination in one single high-standard environment before the food ever reaches the customer.
Next, I want to walk you through 4 timeless lessons every manager can learn from this crisis. First, match control system to scale. What works for 10 locations fails for other 2,000. Small businesses often rely on informal controls and personal trust. However, scaling requires a shift to formal controls such as rigorous audits, data-driven tracking, and industrial safety protocols. You cannot scale a culture of quality without system to enforce it across vast distances. Secondly, prioritize safety over delighters. Never confuse quality with safety. Chipotle obsess over value-added features like organic, non-GMO claims but neglected hygiene factors, which is basic infection avoidance. As a manager, you must secure the essentials that can ruin a business before focusing on delighters. If your underlying problems are unsafe, your brand promise is basically worthless. Third point, bring us to centralized to reset standards. In decentralized organizations, departments often develop inconsistent habits. When performance becomes hazardous, a manager must temporarily centralize authority to reset the state. By closing all stores simultaneously for training, Chipotle used a massive behavioral control to ensure every employee returned to a single unified standard of preparation. And last, set up gates and redundancies. Most managers are reactive by using feedback to fix errors after they happen. Effective managers use pre-controls or gates to stop issues before they enter the system. By introducing DNA testing and centralizing high-risk food prep, Chipotle built redundancies. So even if one person or line fails, the system catches the error before it reaches the customer.
Assalamualaikum, hi and good morning everyone. My name is Puteri Alia Balkis Miti Megat Aizam. My metric number is 24002755 and now today I'll be explaining about the question number 5, which is what roles do social responsibility and ethical behavior play in ensuring that controls are appropriate and working. So, the first one is protecting stakeholders and public health. It ensures that control priority customer safety and also social responsibility demands that companies act in the public interest, especially when lives and health are at stake. For example, Chipotle demands that companies act in the public interest, especially when lives and health are at stake. And for the second one is embedding integrity into control system. Ethical value guide how controls are enforced. Without ethical commitment, controls may exist on paper but fail in practice. For example, Chipotle's move to centralize food preparation and reduce vendors' complexity reflects a deeper ethical intent to prevent future harm. On to the number 3 is fostering a culture of compliance. Social responsibility encourages employees to internalize safety standards, not just follow rules but mechanically. Ethical leadership sets the tone for consistent, values-driven behavior across all levels. For example, employee training on new food handling standard was essential, but its effectiveness depends on a culture that values integrity. Now is number 4, which is driving continuous improvement. Ethical reflection pushes managers to question whether controls are truly effective and fair. Our social responsibility firms monitor, revise, and improve controls as risks evolve. For example, Chipotle's decision to source ingredients from fewer vendors shows a willingness to adopt controls for better oversight. That's all from me. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nur Hidayah binti Masri. My matrix number is 25073420. I will now present the 10-point case study for the second case study. The first point is limiting criticism. Instead of pointing out many weaknesses, managers now focus on only one or two specific areas for improvement, making feedback easier to accept and act on. The second important point is celebrating small wins. Companies like Boston Consulting Group and PwC regularly recognize even small achievements. This helps employees feel appreciated, stay motivated, and remain engaged at work. Third, negativity is being reduced. Some organizations discourage negative feedback to create a more positive and supportive work environment. Continuing on with the fourth point, no negativism allowed mindset, where kindness and encouragement are prioritized over harsh evaluations. The goal is to build trust and psychological safety so employees feel comfortable sharing ideas and taking risks. However, not all companies follow this approach. Netflix takes a different path with its tough love culture. Netflix believes in direct and honest feedback, maintains strict performance standards where underperformance is not tolerated. Now I will pass to the next presenter.
Hi, Assalamualaikum and very good morning to everyone. My name is Puteri Alia Balkis binti Megat Aizam and my matrix number is 24002755. And now today, I'll be continue explaining about the summary of cases 2. To continue, let's see the next point is performance equals survival. At Netflix, employees are expected to perform like elite athletes and those who are merely educated may be let go with a generous severance. The next point is two philosophies, two cultures. The case highlight a stark contrast between nurturing environments and high-pressure performance drive ones. Now let's move to the next point, which is risk-only positive feedback. Is avoiding constructive criticism can lead to stagnation, missed growth opportunities, and unclear expectations. The second last point is managers walk a fine line. They must balance encouragement with honesty, ensuring feedback helps employees improve without demoralizing them. Now, the last point is career takeaway. Understanding your comfort zone, whether you're driving, supportive, or high-performance cultures, can guide your career choices and help you grow with intention. That's all for summary for cases 2. Now, I will pass to the next presenter. Thank you.
Let's have a discussion. Is controlling employee performance an important responsibility of managers? Well, yes. Controlling employee performance is arguably the most critical responsibility of a manager. In a management context, control isn't just about micromanagement. It is the process of monitoring activities to ensure that they are being accomplished as planned and correcting any significant deviations. Without performance control, a manager has no way of knowing if the team is moving towards the goal or if the company resources like time and money are being wasted. First reason is to facilitate coordination and uniformity. Separate spaces are unavoidable in any complicated organization. While finance places a higher priority on reducing expenses, marketing concentrates on reach. These conflicting priorities lead to organizational conflict in the absence of central control system. By offering a single source of truth, control serves as the unifying factor. We make sure that all departments, regardless of their functions, are working toward the same objectives and creating shared KPIs. When handling consistency at scale, this becomes crucial. A company's culture and quality inevitably start to break down as it grows internationally. Control systems offer the constant framework that keeps a decentralized company from disintegrating into disparate procedures. Control ensures a smooth consumer experience, whether in London or New York, enabling a company to expand quickly without compromising its core. Second is enhancing efficiency and resource optimization. From an operational standpoint, control is the primary tool for eliminating waste. Without it, organizations suffer from resource creep, invisible time and money consuming, and putting labor into inefficient processes. Rigorous control allows managers to spot exactly where the work is piling up or where the resources are sitting idle. It allows you to move from guessing where the problem is to knowing exactly where to intervene. By constantly comparing actual spending against budget, managers can take preventive action. This financial control allows us to catch a minor budget overrun today before it evolves into a full-scale fiscal crisis in the next quarter.
And, in addition to that, adapting to environmental change and complexity control provide the real-time data needed to adapt to change. In a volatile market, a static plan can quickly become outdated. Control acts as a feedback loop that constantly compresses your current performance against your goals. This allows you to make immediate, small adjustments to stay on track rather than wait until a major failure occurs. Additionally, control system act as an early warning system for the outside world. By tracking external factors like a competitor's dropping their prices or a change in industry law can shift their team's focus and update their standards before their current way of working becomes a liability. Essentially, it turns information into a competitive head start, boosting employees' motivation and discipline. Finally, we must challenge the misconception that control is oppressive. When designed correctly, a control system actually increases employee morale and engagement. It creates workplace anxiety faster than moving goalposts. Employees feel more secure when they have a clear understanding of how they are being measured. It provides a sense of psychological safety. A consistent control system ensures that rewards, promotion, and recognition are distributed based on merit rather than favoritism. This creates a culture of discipline where high performers feel that their extra effort is actually visible and valued. When the rules of game are transparent, people are more motivated to play to win. In summary, control is about alignment rather than restriction. By placing a high value coordination, efficiency, adaptation, and motivation, and giving a staff member the foundation they require for success rather than merely keeping an eye on them, control is what transforms a collection of gifted people into a working high achievement organization.
Hi, my name is Nur Aini Wadia. Matrix number is 25006548. I will answer question 2. Should manager focus only on positive feedback? Explain. The answer is no. Managers should not focus only on positive feedback. Why? First, employees need constructive feedback to improve. If manager avoid discussing mistakes or weaknesses, employees may not realize where they are underperforming. This can limit skill development and reduce overall performance. Second, positive only feedback can give a false sense of competence. Employees may believe their performance is adequate when it is not, leading to lower standard and complacency over time. Third, organization requires accountability. Honest feedback has aligned employee behavior with organizational goal and expectation. Without addressing poor performance, productivity and quality may decline. However, this does not mean managers should be overly harsh. The most effective approach is a balanced feedback system, recognizing strength and achievement while clearly and respectfully addressing areas that need improvement. This encourages motivation, learning, and continuous development.
Hi, I'm Shamsid bin Hussein, matrix number 25005758, and I'll be discussing the next question, which is what are the risks associated with providing employees only with positive feedback and providing limited feedback on areas of improvement. Now, let's jump to the first point, which is this approach can hinder employee learning and performance improvement. Performance feedback is an essential part of the control process as it helps managers to identify deviations from performance standards and implement corrective actions. According to Robbins and Coulter at 2021, employees require clear and specific feedback to understand where their performance falls short of expectations. When weaknesses are not addressed, employees may continue making the same mistakes all over and over, resulting in slow skill development and reduced long-term effectiveness. Therefore, the absence of constructive feedback limits employees' ability to learn, improve, and even to meet their performance standards effectively. Secondly, focusing exclusively on positive feedback may lead to an inaccurate perception of employee performance. Griffin et 2018 explains that effective performance management depends on honest and balanced communication between managers and employees so that expectations are clearly understood. When managers avoid on discussing weaknesses or areas for improvement, employees may believe that they are actually consistently meeting or exceeding performance standards even when performance gaps exist. These distorted self-assessments can reduce employees' willingness to seek improvement, training, or even guidance. Over time, this misalignment that created by the manager or company itself can result in frustration, dissatisfaction, and loss of motivation when their employees later receive poor evaluations, denied promotions, or even face unexpected disciplinary actions. Thus, overly positive feedback not only misleads employees about their true performance level, but also increases the risk of disappointment, disengagement, and conflict when organizational decisions do not match employees' perceived performance. Finally, providing only positive feedback can create ethical and legal risks for the organization. Armstrong at 2021 states that managers have an ethical responsibility to provide honest and transparent evaluations of employee performance. If employees are later disciplined or terminated without having received clear and documented feedback on performance issues, organizations may face grievances, disputes, or legal challenges. This practice can also damage trust between employees and management and even reduce confidence in the performance appraisal system. Consequently, failing to provide balanced feedback exposes the organization to ethical concerns, legal risks, and the last is the long-term damage to employee trust that make the organization being unstable. I think that's all from me. I will pass it to the next presenter.
Now, I will be presenting question 4. The question is, where would you be more comfortable? An organization with a performance review approach more like the Boston Consulting Group or more like Netflix? Make a list of the pros and cons of both approaches before you make your choice. And what career advice could you take from this? Let's answer this question one by one. One key advantage of BCG's approach is that it can boost employee morale and reduce turnover. Employees are more likely to feel valued when feedback focuses on development rather than punishment. This approach will also encourage a supportive work culture, where the manager will mentor employees who need improvement instead of immediately penalizing them. Additionally, it also will help to reduce emotional fallout from criticism, making feedback easier to accept and act upon. However, there are some drawbacks. A more supportive review system may potentially cover bigger performance gaps that require urgent attention. There will be also a risk of neglecting honest or tough feedback, and employees may feel less pressure or urgency to perform at their highest level if accountability is not strongly enforced. Next, let's consider Netflix's performance review approach. Netflix is known for having a very high performance expectation, which can drive excellence. Its culture of clear and direct feedback enhances personal accountability, and the company also strongly prioritizes talented, high-performing workers, which can lead to a rapid innovation and results. On the downside, this approach can create a fear-based atmosphere where employees feel constant pressure to perform. It also may discourage risk-taking and innovation, as workers might avoid mistakes to protect their job. Over time, this can damage a long-term employee loyalty, especially for those who value stability and job security. Based on these comparisons, I would personally feel more comfortable with the Boston Consulting Group performance review approach. This is because BCG focuses on recognizing achievements, rewarding positive behavior, and also mentoring employees who need improvement. Overall, it creates a more balanced and supportive environment which helps counteract the negativity and burnout. Finally, the career advice I take away from this is simple but important. First, know your feedback style and understand the type of environment where you perform best. Second, seek mentorship and structured development, especially early in your career, as growth-oriented feedback can make a significant difference in the long-term